We're expecting this NEFIT meeting to happen today to discuss mask wearing and lifting them from being mandatory in places like schools, on transport and in shops. Can you speak to the rationale as to why this could happen?
My perspective, it's very premature. I think that we should be keeping mask wearing in all public essential spaces, such as public transport, such as shops. There's really costs us nothing to do so. We're having 10,000 COVID cases a day that we know about. Reinfections are happening and immunity is starting to wane. But particularly so, I think, in the case of schools, we should be maintaining mask wearing for at least the next few months. And the reason for this is that for the entire pandemic, we've been waiting for vaccines. And the problem is that children are still not vaccinated in Irish primary schools. The adult population, we have about 95% of people are vaccinated. In secondary schools, it's not too bad. About 75% of teenagers are vaccinated. But only about 15% of our 540,000 primary school students right now are vaccinated. For this reason, they're not protected. And in January and February, we saw a significant spike. We are seeing a significant spike of child hospitalization of this age group. There are about 100 children in hospital right now who are children. And we've also seen significant hospitalization throughout the end of December to this period of time for people who are 0 to 4 or 5 to 18 years old in general. And it's primarily because there's so many cases in the population, but also because this age group has not yet availed of the vaccines because of the messaging we've had on that. So I think we need to turn that around. I think we need to recognize that it is in the interests of children and the population around them to be vaccinated. Most of them won't go to hospital, but a small portion of them will. But a very large number of them are susceptible to long COVID.
Tomás, can I ask you then, what about secondary school students? A lot of them have been vaccinated, and I just kind of think of PE, you can't have showers. They're in sweaty training gear during the day. There's, drop-off times. There's a lot of frustration from parents out there. There's a lot of frustration from school kids who maybe have had COVID. If people can go to nightclubs and bars and restaurants and walk about without masks or sit down without masks, schools should be any different?
Well, schools are a compulsory social area where students have to spend, all day in a relatively small classroom, which is why air hygiene, air filtration is so important. But masks, when everyone wears them, really help to break chains of transmission and protect people. And even though we've got very good vaccination amongst teenagers, and this is reflected in the hospitalization rates, I would say that for the next few months, it would be a useful point of caution to even maintain masks in secondary schools. Outdoors is not so much of a problem when you're playing sport or when you're in the playground. I think students could be taking off masks there, of course. But while you're indoors, until we actually see a significant decline in cases, not a stabilization, because right now we've got stabilized cases at a very high number. But when you see a decline in cases, I think the story will change, or when we reach terminal levels of vaccination, when secondary schools get to 95%. But really the problem right now, as I see it, is the lack of vaccination in primary schools.